that
Okay, so now we're recording. So you want to announce the neighborhood and the date.
the neighborhood and the date. This is the Northeast Hazel Neighborhood Association, February 14th, 2024 general meeting. Does that satisfy the
Perfect.
requirements? Excellent. Okay. What we're going to be talking about tonight is I'm going to give you a brief update on the sustainability plan for Heritage Farm. Now, both Isla and I are on that committee, so Isla will be able to fill in where I fall short. We are also going to talk about, where's my agenda? The Minnehaha Neighborhood Park. I'll give you an update on where that is. And I also want to talk about something that just came up. It's the Vancouver Upper Main Street Safety and Mobility Project. So we'll be covering those tonight. So, and if anybody has any questions as we go along, feel free. You can either raise your hand, and if I am ignoring you, just shout at me. Everybody else does it, so I'm quite used to it. And I am going to, if we don't have any questions so far, I am going to go to share screen and keep my fingers crossed that I actually get this done correctly. So stand by.
That Mr. Vaughn has signed in.
Okay. Well, I am.
I gotcha.
You got me? Good, because it's not working on my end. So unfortunately, you're going to have to scroll through the pages for me. So, okay. Can everybody see that?
Yep, we can.
Okay, it says public process. So, yeah, Marilee, you're going to have to scroll through it for me. So, but essentially what we got is this is what I'm going to show you tonight is just a small snippet of the 95-page document that the county has online. If you are interested in seeing the entire document, go to Clark County Parks and Recreation, and you click on Parks and Trails, and it will, you can scroll down to 78th Street Heritage Farm, and that will show you the sustainability plan for Heritage Farm. It'll show you options for several different languages. And let's see. So the public process that we went through. Ooh, I'm not doing that. We went through a public process, Isla and I, and we started in October of 2022. And we had two open house, or wait a minute. Okay, where are we at here? I'm losing this. They provided us with, here, I want to show you, those of you that can see that, they provided us with historical documentation for that reached back all the way to the beginning of Heritage Farm. And okay, scroll down a little bit more. Okay, if you could scroll up, I want to show people just who was involved in this in the Heritage Farm steering committee. Okay, we had representative from Parks and Lands, Parks Advisory Board, WSU Cooperative Extension, the Heritage Farm Advisory Team. We had a representative from the school district, from NAACP, the League of United Latin American Citizens of Southwest Washington, I believe that acronym is LULAC. Isla, correct me if I'm wrong
Yes.
on
That's correct.
it. Clark Conservation District. I was the representative for Northeast Hazeldale. Isla was the representative, is the representative for the Hazeldale Salmon Creek Business Association. And we had a representative from Visit Vancouver. Now, we tried to get the Cowlitz tribe to also be involved in this, but they did not provide a representative to the steering committee.
Just to be clear, there are a couple of people who were put on the committee that we really did not see. We never saw a rep show up from NAACP, and the Visit Clark County person only came to the last open house, but never to our meetings. And so that's something. But there's some people here that are kind of interesting to us. For instance, Joe Zimmerman here was the farm manager for 2 years. His family owns Busy Farms, and then we have over here Zora Oppenheimer, who is the representative from Clark Conservation District. And this is Christine Perry. She is in charge of the big complex at the Heritage Farm run by Washington State University Extension Service. I'll be quiet now, Bill.
No, thank you for jumping in. You have much more information about these people than I have. Just going back through the process, we had meetings on it all the way through to January of 2024. January 3rd of 2024, we had 2 open houses. The picture that you saw on the last page was a picture from the first open house, where we basically just engaged with people that came to the open house and talked about some of the issues that we had worked on so far. If you scroll down a little bit more, the second open house was January 24th. It says upcoming, but this is an old document. We had it already, and Isla was there, I was there, and there were Teresa, I believe you were there too, weren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So jump in if you remember something from the second open house that I am missing.
Bill,
But-
I don't know that everybody understands where the Heritage Farm came from or why all of a sudden they threw a bunch of land out there and said, here's a farm building. But
You want to go through an entire historical perspective of
no,
Heritage?
I just want to remind people that it started out as a county poor farm, and that is something that the states were required to put together in the early years, and that's kind of how it started. And so sometimes you'll hear older members of the community refer to it as the poor farm.
Poor farm, yeah.
We don't want them to think of it as that.
No, and it started out as it was a land grant from the Andersons. I don't remember the husband's name, but Sarah J was the wife that the school is named after, and they granted the land to Clark County in lieu of payment of taxes, I believe it was. So, and it was the poor farm, and yeah, I don't have the list of the dates on how it basically went to what it is, but questions? Okay. After the second open house, we have community leader interviews, just to give you an idea of what it is that is of concern to our community leaders for Heritage Farm. And the first bullet point that you see there is something that we talked about quite a bit during the steering committee meeting, is that is the property a farm or a park. Planned uses need to be compatible with preserving the site's agriculture and integrity. That was a large theme that continued to come up at the meetings about making sure that that the agriculture identity of the area was preserved. The farm is a unique resource in the community, and there is some anxiety regarding the future of the property. One of the other anxieties that both Isla and I addressed at the beginning is that we did not want to see this land sold off for development for housings or commercial. And if you do go to this report online, you will see earlier in the document that that is something that not selling the property is something that they're also very concerned about. So, even frequent farm use. Well, oh, it keeps moving. Even frequent farm users are unaware of the other activities at the farm and aren't acquainted with some areas of the site, and they preferred future of the farm was largely to expand current uses. These are comments made by community leaders. And at the bottom, it says more detailed summary of the interview questions and responses is provided in Appendix X. If you go to the report, you'll find that it's 95 pages because most of that are appendixes. So
That's
can we?
right. And actually, Bill, the concern about having it sold off for development doesn't just come out of somebody's imagination. We've already, the business community connected with the neighborhood associations and residents have already gone to task with Clark County over that. We had a gung-ho developer who had high hopes of selling it off and sharing the money between Clark County and Washington State University when they had the farm ownership. So it's not, sometimes people just mention stuff in passing because we are used to this. But if you're new to the whole farm concept, as Mr. Vaughn is, then that kind of stuff is important. It really is important. It's also unique in the United States. There is only one more farm similar to this similar to size in the whole country. So it's important to maintain it.
Thank you. Can we scroll down a little bit more? Okay, a community survey went out, and some of the responses from the community include that the heritage farm must be preserved as a unique asset and celebrate the county's agricultural roots. And better publicity about the farm activity would increase public use. This was another important theme that came up several times in the steering committee meetings. New facilities and activities should be considered for the site without displaying current uses. And could we scroll down a little bit more? New funding sources can be considered, and this is a public space that will always require some public funds. Now, the reason this gets to the heart of the reason why we put they put the steering committee together. The county parks got a mandate from the I guess maybe I shouldn't call it mandate, but got a request from the county council that they were looking for ways to recover some of the costs, because the county pretty much foots the bill for right now for everything that goes on at Heritage Farm, and they want to do cost recovery. And while that isn't the most important mandate of the steering committee, that is something that certainly came up at the meetings quite regularly, and how we accomplished that. Isla, am I stating that correctly?
Yes, actually, you are pretty close. And I'm going to let you go for a while. I might have to jump in. I have a couple things. But so far, we're good. Well, because we'll just do it right now. One of the things that we were troubled by as a committee, really a diverse committee, we could not have asked for a better cross-section of people to bring in and still keep the committee and, fitting in the room. But we were told we needed to come up with $500,000. And so we asked for budgets because we couldn't figure out how $500,000 how can you be spending that kind of money on it? There's nothing really happening over there except for gardening and community gardens and master gardeners and the experimental stations work. And so we couldn't get it. But it turns out, and when we asked for money, they gave us 5 different figures in the beginning. So it turns out of that $500,000, a little over 330,000 is required by the state of Washington. RCW requires that any county of our size needs to have an extension service to assist the people in growing things and doing good things. So that's why Washington State University is housed on the property. It's the logical place to have them, and they've been there before. They have a long history on the property. So once you take out the 330,000, we're left with 170,000. We played with a lot of ways to try to do that, but there are a lot of restrictions on what can happen on that site. And so really what I would hope community groups that hear this pull out is any kind of creative ideas that we could come up with to help make some of the processes or add new processes to bring some more income into the property, because that's really what the county's concerned about.
Okay, thank you. Okay, could we scroll down? Little bit more to the next page. Okay, basically what this is just additional public meetings, letting everybody know that there's still stuff going on. Not, it's the Heritage Farm Advisory Team and the advisory board and their scheduled plan to get it to the Clark County Council. Okay, operation alternatives. This is kind of the meat of what we came up with. Essentially, what we did is we developed several operational alternatives by establishing guiding principles that we wanted to see at the farm and programmatic elements and cost recovery strategies. So the guiding principles that we came up with, and these came up quite a few times in different efforts that we had during meetings to come up with a plan, the guiding principle is that we wanted to celebrate Clark County's agricultural heritage. And we wanted to maintain Washington State University's presence on the site through programs, research, and office facilities, and promote sustainable agricultural and building practices. We wanted to support agricultural research that supports sustainable farming practices, enhance community wellness and inspire lifelong learning, promote community volunteerism. There are a lot of volunteer organizations that work down there. Integrate a variety of activities and resources that provide community access. Community access was something that we talked about quite a bit during the meetings, and reflect sound fiscal policy and decision-making matters. Those are the guiding principles that we were working with. So, questions so far? Hearing none. The programmatic elements, could we scroll to the next page? We developed a list of programmatic elements. It's for improvements, additions, and modifications that could be implemented at the farm. Now we have, I think, a total of 32, and not all of these programmatic elements ended up in the final plan. But as you can see from the list, these are elements: the WSU Cooperative Extension Services, Incubator Farming Program, and community gardens. Agricultural lease space, and on. Food is free garden, farmers market. We discussed the concept of having a farmers market out of the area as a way for cost recovery. A food processing hub, multi-use buildings, farming events, Vancouver and Clark County leaf litter composting. That was an interesting idea, and they brought that up as a way for collecting leaves and turning them into compost. and selling the compost away. Did you have something to add, Isla?
I'm being really quiet. I was-
I know, and it's
I was
scary.
going to say that one of the things that I don't know where it is on this report, but it's important for people to understand that even though most of the people that work on the farm are volunteers, either for their family or for one of the nonprofits, one of the big prime things is that Clark County Food Bank has 10 acres. And I believe last year's number was 70,000 pounds of food that they produce just in the growing season. And they give that to the food bank. I mean, that is food bank, fresh produce from the food bank. They also have a program where they have a fundraising dinner party, and there you can buy this produce. And when I worked at Riverview, one of our people bought a bunch of these things, and they would every week they would bring in this basket of food complete with recipes for this is what this food looks like. I mean, kohlrabi, stuff that we don't usually, I mean, in my house doesn't usually eat, and then how to cook it. It was just kind of a cool thing. I thought I'd add it.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, could we scroll down? Farm to table program, agricultural, horticulture, yeah, those are that's the last of the programmatic elements. Okay, could we go to the next page? Cost recovery strategies, that's part of what the steering committee and the planning team worked to address, and we looked at using the general fund for cost recovery, Metropolitan Parks District, equitable lease adjustments, fee for farm services, Friends of the Farm memberships, Friends of the Farm fundraising, educational institution partnerships, a non-governmental organization and nonprofit management. And when we go over the three options that the planning and the steering committee came up with, that will come up in one of the options that we'll look at. Grants, parking fees, donation items, revenue percentages from farm user sales, corporate sponsorship. I don't recall talking about wind or solar power generation too awfully much, but that's part of the cost recovery.
It is, and with that tall hill between 78th and 68th, we thought that that would be the ideal place. It wouldn't impact too much of the growth area, but it would generate something. It's something that it's going to take some research to figure out if it'll work, but yeah.
Yeah. So, and then the Vancouver Clark County Leaf Litter Composting and Sales Program, which I don't have a whole lot more information on, but okay. So
Pete Dubois does the recycling out at the Casey Center right now, and he does have an area at the poor farmer. Well, no. What's its name now? It's no longer the ag site. It's no longer the poor farm. At the Heritage Farm, where he does classes to teach people how to properly recycle and compost their stuff.
I have a question.
Sure. Go ahead.
Looking at the cost recovery strategies, is there anything that Washington State University is paying into that for their extension services?
Isla, you want to grab that one?
If I repeat it again, I was trying to write. I'm sorry, Steve.
Is Washington State University paying anything into this cost recovery?
No, Washington State University has multiple programs that they carry out on the campus, all connected with the extension programs that they're acquired to run, and they're all well received and well attended, but whatever they earn on it stays inside of their pot, as I understand it, which is something else we cannot grow on the farm. but we could make money on it.
Okay. The sustainability plan option development. We broke up into self-selected small groups to identify alternative management and usage approaches from the farm. This was an interesting exercise that we did at one of the meetings, and it included the, just kind of writing up what we thought using the programmatic elements that we had listed before. And we were looking to, to look at programmatic elements and cost recovery options and to come up with some strategies. And a total of, at the end of the exercise, when the planning group took all the information that we had given them, they came up with 6 alternatives for us to consider. We could scroll down a little bit more. Okay, the operational alternatives. Get to my notes here. They initially came out with 6 alternatives, but they wintered them down to 3 because many of the alternatives had some of the same program elements and cost recovery strategies as some of the other 2. So they put them together, and they came up with 3 alternatives for us to look at. And I just like to go through. These are, I mean, what we've talked about before is the process, and I just wanted you to kind of understand how we got where we are. And the important part for me is the alternatives that we have come up with and are going to move forward with. Alternative 1 essentially is minimal change, not do much of anything different than what we are already doing. That they expressed interest in continuing to operate the farm as it currently is being utilized with no change. Now, obviously, the problem would be is that with minimal change, we're not integrating any of the programmatic elements or any of the cost recovery strategies that the county council was asking for. And there were a few things that they could do. I think in paragraph 3, see equitable lease adjustments. There are leases that that are currently worked with in the heritage farm that they could adjust and through updates and policies and procedures to provide some recovery of cost. And that would also might include some grant funding opportunities for this type of property. But essentially, yeah, it doesn't do much for increasing the cost recovery of the site. Alternate 2, I had mentioned before, we talked about having an NGO, an outside non-governmental organization come in and take over farm operations. And there were identified a lot of challenges associated with an NGO managed alternative, and one of the biggest ones is finding a nonprofit that has the wherewithal and resources to actually do the job. And that is one of the reasons why this alternative 2 is not being recommended at this point right now. Let's see what it says. Despite the challenges associated with the NGO managed alternative, it is an approach that offers some promise, but identifying a partner with the capacity to operate the farm. I'm assuming that family is not the correct word there, that they should have changed it to farm, without continued county support presents a significant challenge. So alternative 2 is not the one that the planning committee is recommending. If we could scroll down. Alternative 3, this is the one that they are recommending at this point in time. It is an amalgamation of, like I said, they came up with initially 6 alternatives. and they amalgamated them all together to develop, developed by the steering committee. And the reason being is that a vast majority of the programming elements selected by the steering committee groups were consistent with, and I loved this name. It was called Build the Farm exercise that we all did. Those elements selected by the groups have been considered by the planning team for inclusion in this alternative. And in most cases, a majority of the 6 groups that selected the programmatic elements and cost recovery elements, envisioning a sort of agricultural focused community park. Now, calling it a park has raised a lot of hackles in a lot of areas, and it elicited a lot of discussion, and I anticipate that it will continue to raise a lot of discussion as we go along, trying to define what, I mean, we spent a lot of time talking about trying to define what exactly a park is, and did we really want to make a park out of it? And along those lines, Isla, do you have a comment?
Well, I was just going to say that one of the options was calling it an agri-park, and I thought at least that that would pacify everybody who's concerned about it. We want to emphasize agriculture on the property, but surprisingly, Washington State University, as well as Friends of Clark County, Friends of the Heritage Farm, balked at that. They don't like the idea of a park at all. But if it were a park and called a park, then there would be very little kickback about it's earning its own way in life, because none of the parks in Clark County are able to pay for themselves, nor are they expected to. So it's a thing. I like the idea of an agri-park, but I don't know where they're going to go with it.
Yeah, I'm also in favor of the agri-park, and I don't have nearly the problem that a lot of people did with calling it a park. That opens up an opportunity for other funding that I think, properly designed, we could certainly make the thing work and do that cost recovery that the county councilors want.
I think it's a very good idea, and you'll no doubt hear it at least put forward a few more times.
I'm sure.
It seems like including a park in the name of it could include more of the public too, the general public.
That's exactly
more
right.
People more people would be involved.
Well, they would, Mr. Vaughn, and not just that. We've already wrestled with the very issue of how we allow more public access, because the original plan has a great walking trail all the way around the property, but there's so much money invested in equipment there, and the security issue has come up again and again. So that I love the idea, and I want people on there. I want little kids to drive by with their parents and say, "What's going on? I want to go over there. Let's find out what that is." It's such a cool resource, and I just would like to get some people wrapped up around it and say, this is worth our time.
Yeah, increasing public knowledge and access to the site definitely was one of the main themes of what we talked about. Could we scroll down to the next page? Okay, the preferred operational approach. As we've already said, that the planning team recommends the advancements of the agri-park alternative as the preferred planning moving forward. And there are, scroll down a little bit more, the agricultural programmatic elements. I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time talking about, with the words that are more than 1 or 2 syllables, but I apologize ahead of time. WSU Cooperative Extension Services, which Isla talked about, and there was a question about, would be included in this. The university-run programs collaborating with Clark County to provide lifelong learning for individuals, organizations, businesses, and communities to improve quality of life. Now, there are some of the things here that I am not totally familiar with how they work, and Isla, if you can jump in and help me out, but incubator farm programming.
Well, that is just literally a training course to teach people how to grow various kinds of crops, not just grow them, but what they're trying to, they have many classes in how to preserve them. And that's a big thing. So there's also a wetland going through there. Cougar Creek runs through the Heritage Farm. And so they have things that really thrive in a wetland environment, but that's what that might be about, the whole incubator farm thing. And they've got multiple greenhouses that the master gardeners use to grow their plants. They have an annual sale on Mother's Day and a lot of classes that'll teach people how to do all sorts of magical stuff with their food. And obviously during COVID, you had the problem of you can't have people nose to face with one another, but you have them now unable to go to work. So they can learn this kind of stuff. And they had a lot of interest during COVID and after in families of just how to start growing their own food, because all of a sudden people realized it might be a very important skill to have.
Yeah, well, they also had how to preserve food. I've taken courses down there on how to preserve food. So
Right.
community gardens, there was some concern, a lot of concern that I heard from people in the neighborhood was, about the community gardens and the possibility of those either, being reduced or going away. And from what we understand from the planning committee is that that's not going to happen with this alternative, is the community gardens will continue. But as Isla said earlier, one of the concerns was, especially for people that have the community gardens, is if they go ahead with some of the other things that they have planned, is the security of the site, especially when it comes to the community gardens.
Exactly. In fact, they have said, I spoke to Christine Perry from Washington State University specifically about that. And she said there's room to add more community gardens if we had interest. So that's another thing to think about. I think the current cost annually to lease a community garden space is $85 a year.
Yeah, and if you'll think back on some of the other strategies, increasing the price of leases to add to the cost recovery, I believe also involves the community gardens. Agricultural lease space, leased land for private and nonprofit farming, and the agriculture research lease space, when we also talk about these lease spaces for increasing the amount of money that's charged to lease them as a cost recovery plan. And then Isla mentioned the food bank stuff is the food production for underserved communities, subsidizing land lease or nonprofit to produce food for underserved populations in Clark County. I believe that's what you were referring to, talking about the food bank. And
yes.
Okay. There was a lot of talk about farm stand, about providing a space for vendors to come in and sell locally produced produce. One of the magical
I don't know why they didn't
about
just
the
groan
English
in there, but
language.
okay.
Yeah. So anyway, flowers, etc., may require a contract non-county program operator. I think that we're still under some discussion as far as providing that. A farmer's market, I guess, is what you'd referred that to.
Right.
We had some.
Actually,
I was going to say we had somebody talk about farmers markets and that there was a limited number of actual vendors for the different farmers markets throughout Clark County, and that we might have some issues getting people to use that space. Isla, you want
well,
to say?
all I was going to say is just this afternoon, I came out of a Friends of Clark County meeting before this meeting, and I know that Ann Foster, who deals with the Salmon Creek Farmers Market, has an appointment, I believe, this week to meet with Parks Department and chat about what it would take to actually do a farmers market there. Because for those of us who have no idea how much of a organizational nightmare it could be, we just thought it was a great idea. Joe Zimmerman will also be meeting with the county on that, and both he and Ann have said, it's not a slam dunk. It's a real commitment, and so that would I think that would draw people in, as we said with Mr. Bond. Just get people onto the site.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I'm going to kind of watch this space for that, because I think we're going to be finding out something about that soon.
Cool. Okay, multi-use buildings for private use. You're good. Go ahead, scroll up. Farm events programming, farm park amenities. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Features small farm animals, barns, ag, and educational demonstrations. Yeah. Farm historic tours, interpretive trails around the property. We'll get into the interpretive trails and all the other trails here towards the end of this. But this is one of the things that's included in alternative 3. Composting education. I think everybody needs to know how to compost stuff. So composting education is included. Continuing agricultural education for adults. Farm to table programming for students, showing how food brings people together. Can we scroll down a little bit more? Just a little bit more. Here. Thank you. Horticultural educational programming that supports home horticultural skills development, gardening at home. Now, we also talked about in the steering committee, community outdoor classrooms, and a lot of this stuff comes up when we were really addressing the theme of getting more people on the farm, getting them familiar with what happens at the farm, and just making the site more accessible to more people so that people understand exactly what's going on there. I've talked to people that they drive by, and from a car on 78th Street, you can see the signage and you can see the big wonderful tree out front and the old buildings, but you can't see a lot of what's going on aside from the greenhouses and the older buildings. We need to get more people on the site to understand exactly what's going on there so that they can appreciate what they have more. And that also includes school district programming, agricultural based educational programs, field trips, things like that with the schools. And then at the end, we'll talk a little bit more about this, the recreational programmatic elements, a community trail. And I'll show you a map here in a little bit. I think it's coming up. Community trails open to the public with an interpretive trail around the property, views of historical buildings, the cemetery, wetlands, and all the other things that Isla has talked about, controlled through a gate aligned with the community park standards and physically separated from active farming areas. They say that, but we haven't figured out exactly how to do it and make it work and not make it look like a prison. Children's play area, farm. I'm sorry?
I say it started that way.
Yeah. We started looking at it, and
Yeah.
how do you build a fence that keeps people out from the farming area? These are all questions that we're still struggling with. So anyway, that's the recreational programmatic elements. The cost recovery elements, where of course with their reliance in whole or in part on the current county funding source. Now, if it was designated as a park, if it became an agri park, they would be able to designate a portion of the entire property as a community park, which would facilitate or shift a portion of the general fund to the MPD funding mechanism, the Metropolitan Park District funding mechanism. And that's one of the reasons why we're pushing as hard as we can to get it designated as a park, even though a lot of people don't want it to be that way. So could we scroll down a little bit more?
There are already some designations on the farm that are very protective. It is listed on the historical registers of the state of Washington, Clark County, and the United States federal government. So it has some protections already, but not for all the land.
Okay, we talked about the leases for different activities there on the farm. These are just the cost recovery elements, equitable lease adjustments, fee for farm services, establishing rates for farm materials, equipment, labor to assist leases with agricultural production, Friends of the Farm fundraising. I don't know if you are all aware that there is an organization called Friends of the Farm Foundation.
I'm a member.
Okay. And educational institution partnerships with the local university, school district, to provide programming support for agricultural and historical education. Okay, grants, donations. I think we covered this a little bit more. Revenue percentage from sold items. I don't know whether you've ever been there during one of their plant sales, but get there early because the plants disappear real fast. But the revenue percentage from sold items is another part that they have included as far as cost recovery. And then, of course, we still have the Vancouver Clark County Leaf Litter Composting and Sale Program, and host the existing program at the site and develop a revenue sharing agreement. Okay, we can scroll through alternative 1 and 2. I think we covered all those. The preferred alternative is 3. And there's a picture of the plant sale. And generally, by the time I get there, those pallets are mostly empty by that time. So now the next steps. Okay, the next steps that are going to be followed as far as, well, first of all, let me ask, are there any questions so far before we get to the next steps? Hearing none. Okay. You're breaking up, Teresa.
Uh-huh.
You're breaking up.
Oh, I don't know what to do about that.
I don't either. I just thought I'd tell you.
Thank you. On the sale, do you know if they've gone back to just an open one, or is it still by appointment only?
The sale of, are we talking about the plants that they sell?
The Mother's
On
Day.
Mother's Day.
Mother's Day plants. I was not aware that it was by appointment only. Maybe that's why when I show up, there's nothing left. So
Yeah, I still think that they have a proprietary group that gets invitations ahead of time, Teresa. I'm not positive about that. I've never managed to buy anything there. I'm always
yeah.
like Dell. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you can actually sign up for a time that you come in to attend. There.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Correct.
Kathy has some.
But if you're not on their membership, a paying member, then you're third or fourth day for signups.
Kathy had something. Bill.
What's that?
Kathy.
Kathy, go ahead. I can't see you. I've only got 4 pictures on my screen.
Oh, okay. I got a little thing buzzing around in my head, so now I'm hung up on it, and it has to do with Washington State's energy program. I mean, quite a few years back, they put up it's like a mini wind farm off of, I think it's 50th Street behind them or something like that. So somewhere in these steps, you were talking about you said it didn't get addressed very much about wind and solar. But I thought if you're talking about a way of generating income, I don't know that it generates income as much as it could generate power, which gets back to Clark County utilities, which offsets some other budget need. So it's kind of a trade-off between, you know, the county agencies on who gets money and who puts out money. You know what I mean? Am I saying it clearly?
Well, what I had envisioned, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that the generation of power, I don't know if it would be a massive enough installation to actually move that power into Clark Public Utilities, but it would reduce the expenditures of the power needs for the farm itself. Now, maybe it'll go a little bit beyond that. It would by you know, cost recovery by eliminating one of the expenditures of the farm. Now,
You just, you,
Isla,
yeah, you just get credit back on your power bill. Kevin brought up a point. He said he was talking about the Mother's Day sale, and he said, just one second. Now I lost it. Just a minute. So you sign up online for the appointment times when you want to go to the Mother's Day sale. So it's something you can do ahead of time. It only is on for a couple of days that weekend. But that's good to know. You don't have to know anybody. You just have to get online early.
excellent. Does that answer your question as far as the power generation goes? That's really the extent of my knowledge, is that it wouldn't be like a like a, you know, one of the big wind farms that generates and added, you know, out into the grid, but it would reduce the costs associated with the farm and the building and everything. Okay. Next steps: improve inclusion and equity in farm access through intentional engagement with advocates of historically underrepresented groups in the community. Build on the trust developed during the development of this plan. Explore additional farm partnerships. Finalize equitable land lease programs. These are things that they are planning to do now that they have reached the stage of having a draft sustainability plan. Finalize equitable land lease programs and negotiate new leases with current farm partners. Develop a cost of services and infrastructure for compensation for services. Analyze cost sharing and operation relationships between the county and farm partners. Could we scroll up a little? There we go. Develop a first phase of public access improvements to include interpretive and recreational trails, educational sites, and those things. Develop a safety and security plan. Two of the things that we have talked about briefly before, the interpretive and recreational trails and the safety and security plan kind of go hand in hand. Safety and security plan associated with public access improvements to be implemented, and explore additional revenue generation options such as the Vancouver Clark County Leaf Litter Composting and Sales Program. They're pushing that one fairly hard. Let's see. Yeah, Heritage Farm. Yeah, now they're just kind of talking neatly about themselves. If you'll scroll to the next page, if there are no other questions.
There we go.
Here is a map of the site where they were talking about interpretive trails. There's been a lot of disagreements as to the extension of the, I guess I should have put that in there sideways, but it would have made the words look goofy. There's been some disagreement as to the extension of the trails and how we would actually provide security for the other areas, the agricultural crop land and everything else. But this is their draft map of how those interpretive trails would look like. I myself kind of, I'm leaning towards the same thing that Isla is, I believe, and I don't want to misspeak myself, but a little bit more of an abbreviated version of this that doesn't include so much of Heritage Farm. Isla, am I misquoting you?
Right, at least initially, it would cut down the cost in setting up the trail. Exactly right. So what Bill's talking about is coming in from Hazeldale Park, access on 68th Street. And the way that land goes, it just kind of goes up to a hill. But if you look along the bottom where it kind of looks like a hand or a flag or something sticking out to the left, that all of that land area could be made into a very inexpensive trail. And if you had to put a small fence along there, that's not too bad. One of the things that Bill just slid right over was the fact that this property not only has some significant historical buildings, it also has a Poor Farm Residential Cemetery, which the state has just designated. It's just a place we have to be very careful about. But it's one of those things that if you're at all interested in history, it just seems to me that there's some really sad lives here that are just sitting up there on the hill. I don't know. I could do a great big fundraiser to freshen up the cemetery when we've had some people on county staff that were quite enthusiastic about that kind of thing. And then they did some ground penetrating radar to find out where all the bodies were and that sort of thing. It's another thing that makes it a little more interesting. But I think you could do you could really, without impacting almost anybody, you could do that lower trail.
And this, it also coincides with the fact that they're doing master planning on improving the trails and parking at Hazeldale Park. So hopefully that would be something that would tie in together. Yes.
Me?
Yes, Kathy.
This may be totally trivial, but I use Hazeldale Park quite a bit. It's accessed through the backside of our property pretty easily. I would be concerned, and I don't know if anybody's talking about it, is the darn dogs. I mean, I take my dog to the park. That's why I go over there. But I would kind of hate to see dogs having free reign over here, because everywhere we go, dogs are a pain in the neck, and it's the owners, not the dogs. But for the issues that having dogs on property like this, I wonder if that's even a discussion.
I think it came up in discussion, but in reference to how we're going to secure the site.
Yeah.
As far as the fencing that would be required and how that would work and things like that. Isla?
Actually, yeah, we have done that. And that's another time, Kathy, where that fence would be important. Right now, there's nothing more than grass growing in that area to the left of, which I think is west of Hazeldale Park. But the dog rules could never go on. Dogs just could not go on the park. I mean, on the farm property as it sits. You could not do that.
Right.
Yeah.
May I say something?
Sure. Yes.
I think that trails really do increase public involvement in recreational areas, especially. You see many people using trails in Salmon Creek and down in the Columbia River. So I'm sure that these trails would be used, would benefit a lot of people. And also, I think that there are rules against allowing your dog off leash in Hazeldale Park and also on any of the trails.
Yeah, there are rules against that, but that doesn't necessarily. I walked Tenny Creek Park off
Yeah.
Indian Street all the
Yeah.
time, and that's a dogs on leash only park.
Yep.
And there's always people that don't obey that. So even though it is required, that, I mean, we have to anticipate that it's not going to be followed. And the, other trails around Clark County, yeah, the difference that I see is that those trails don't run through the type of land with the land use that this one has. There are a lot of areas that really need to be secured from people just wandering through. I am all for increasing public access to the area. We talked about this. We've talked about this extensively before, and we'll talk about it afterwards. Is that, the access needs to be easier, but
Yeah.
in providing easier access, you also have to think about the security of the site.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's some of the conundrums that we're
Yeah.
that we're currently dealing with. So.
When I talked to Rocky Houston is in charge of our parks with Public Works. And when I talked to him about the idea of only using the lower part initially for trails to just keep the cost down and get the usage started, he said, but I think we could just build like a fence around it and make it 3 feet high or something. And, I thought to myself, you're not going to keep thieves out with that kind of access. It's still going to happen, but he isn't excited about doing a partial at this stage. He isn't excited about doing a partial trail at the bottom part, but I think he could be swayed. Anyway,
Well, I was going to say, I never talked to Rocky about it, but I can climb a 3-foot fence.
yeah.
And if I can get over it, just about anybody can get over it. So.
Well, right, exactly.
That's not security. That's just,
Yeah, right. Well, and it's
not
true.
well.
What everybody has said. At least for me, the main thing is people will appreciate what they can see, touch, and feel. And if you can't do that, then where are you going to get the support to maintain it? I worry all the time. I've got friends that live in Cascade Park. They don't have any idea what this heritage farm thing is. And I know that the county thinks that they've done a whole bunch of stuff for advertising it, but it might not surprise anybody to know this is not their only concern right now. And it's not the only thing they have to worry about. But it's one of those things where for me, every little step we can take to bring this to the public's eye in a positive way, I think would be helpful.
Okay, and Jude has her hand up.
Yeah, sorry to be late. Missed a great meeting. I'm sure the idea that I was going to propose was that there be kind of guided tours, so that there would be like a schedule for public to take a guided tour. So there's a host, maybe volunteers or a paid position for, whatever, but building more fences doesn't feel like to me a solution. It already feels pretty fenced, and that does not keep vandalism away from happening. And so because it's really a farm and we're gonna make it more park-like, because a farm would have a guided tour, this is the tour day, or these are the times and days that you could come, and just kind of a compromise so we don't have to build a whole lot of infrastructure just to get access.
I totally agree with you on that, but the issue that raises, of course, is hosting guided tours. Okay, Isla, you look excited.
Only because Washington State University already does tours. They do tours depending on what season it is and what kind of things are interesting on the property. But as usual, and most of those are, the tour guides are Washington State University grad students or more than staff. But as usual, they need helpers and they need volunteers, and that's hard. But they do know that that's a big part of it. And Christine is willing to expand where she can, but you know, she's got a big budget, but not a forever budget. So she's always careful with where she spends her money. But it is yeah, and I would think that, you know, a couple of times a year you could just throw a spread in the newspaper and have them come out and see what's going on at the farm. We don't do a lot of that, and I'll nag Rocky about that.
Yeah, the Master Gardener program, do they also do tours? I
Yes.
believe that they were the ones that actually gave us our tour when the steering committee had a tour of the place, and some of us climbed the elevation at the back and had chest pains because of it. But yeah, the Master Gardeners also do those. Any other comments before we move on from Heritage Farm?
Will you share the recording of this meeting so I can hear the earlier part?
It is being recorded, and that will be up to Mary Lee as far as how and when it gets posted. I'm sure that she will contact me, and I can send that post out as soon as I get it, or I know where it is, so that people can view it.
Great, thank you. And the comment period is the 23rd of February?
I'm sorry,
The comment period ends on the 23rd of February?
the comment period. Oh, no, is Isla. I don't know when the comment period ends for this. You got to unmute yourself, sweetheart.
I know. I think that's what we were told. It was the 23rd,
Yeah,
something like that. It's going to be on top of us before we know it, but that makes it next Friday, a week Friday.
yeah. So really what you can do is, where's my stuff? If you really want to go to, you go online to Clark County Parks and Recreations, which I told
No,
you.
you go to clark.wa.gov, then you go to the rest. Come on,
Okay, I trust you.
that's all
I
right.
was also going to tell them how to get to a copy of the sustainability plan
Right.
and the 2020 the 2020 plan, the master plan. So if they wanted to look at copies of those, the 2020 master plan is much more advantageous to look at because it's only 24 pages long, as opposed to the nearly 100 pages for the sustainability plan. Are there any other questions before we move on? Hearing none, the Minnehaha Park. Okay, this is a neighborhood park that's going in the Minnehaha area. It's 5 acres that they purchased in 2016 that they're now getting serious about. They want to improve it to a level of open green space for passive recreation with intent to develop into a neighborhood park. Now, one of the things that when we had open houses that we had to explain the difference between community parks and neighborhood parks, and this would be a smaller neighborhood park. And okay, and it's located in the West Minnehaha area. If you look at the map, if you go to off of Highway 99, you go to Minnehaha Street and turn up Northeast 17th Avenue, and you can see kind of in the map where it is. It's I don't know what that identifier means, but the park construction is anticipated in 2026. So can we scroll down? Okay, they did a site analysis. And I don't know if everybody can see that, but essentially you're looking at the shaded areas with selected solar exposure. Seasonal wet areas, they're looking at, and when we walked this, it didn't look really as neat as it does here, but open meadow with sun access. They have a lot of visual access from the neighbors. They have listed the potential connection to the apartments to the south. I find myself pointing at the screen, but you can't see me as I'm pointing. So, but and they want to develop limited parking on 17th Avenue. If we could scroll to the next screen really quick. Okay, we're gonna need to go one up from that. Yeah, I doubled up on, okay. We're looking at, they've already come up with some alternate plans, some design options. Is everybody familiar with the site that I'm talking about? Have you guys been up there, or are you aware of what's going on up there? Okay, these are what is in the plan on the website, and this is also what they displayed at the 2 open houses that they've had. So this is just one of the design options. You can see that it's got a structured play area, habitat garden, walking path. And below there are examples of what they're referring to in the map as far as the soft surface path and group seating. Can we scroll up to the next one? There are 3 options that are provided on the website. This is the second option. Just a little bit different configuration of the walking path and where they locate the natural play areas. This includes a boardwalk running up the middle and a meadow overlook deck. And on all 3 of the options, you'll see that they will be providing accessible parking. And one of the concerns that has come up at the meetings was the use of the parking by people that live in the apartment complex to the south. So that has been part of the discussion. Can we go to the next one? It's a little bit different in construction. It's got a paved walkway, picnic shelters, and of course play areas, and some of the same issues with the habitat garden, forest seating area, flowering trees, and scrolling gardens. These are the 3 options that the county is looking at for what to turn this park into. And I have not met with Lindy lately about where they're at in the process, but it is our hope that we can keep you informed on what's going on as far as moving forward with the park. Are there any questions?
Bill, do you remember when the deadline for opinions on these 3 options is, or has it passed already?
I'm not sure when the deadline was.
I'm just looking to see if I can find it. Don't wait.
Do you know
for
what
me
the
to
results
find-
of the naming contest or naming opinions are
Oh,
yet?
the naming. I wanted to bring that up.
The maiming of cats. Yeah, it's a serious thing.
It is. It's the 3 that were selected for tossing about was, Isla, what's your favorite one? Isn't it West something? It's okay. It's Trillium Park.
Trillium. There was
Trillium
Trillium. Was it
What's the road you live on?
Marisopa and Wildwood?
Mariposa, I think is, or
Oh, right. Thank you. Yeah,
it's supposed to be some kind of butterfly. I keep thinking about Clint Eastwood's film production company, but to the best of my knowledge, they have not made a decision yet. I favor, what was it again, Isla? West Side?
No, you like
Wildwood.
I have
That's
serious
what it is.
objection to Wildwood because I live in the Wildwood development on Wildwood Drive on the other side of the freeway.
Yeah.
So it seems confusing, but
she doesn't want to end up driving there home later at night when she gets confused about where she's going.
Oh, Fada. Listen to
Anyway,
you.
I'm sorry. This has been an issue between Isla and I for quite some time since we first started talking about the park, but there hasn't been a decision made, but those are the three options. Trillium, Wildwood, and Mariposa Parks, so.
Mariposa
Any
sounds
questions?
like it. Yeah, you go ahead.
Just asking if there's any further questions before we move on to the end of our program. Hearing none, okay. Now, this is something that I just received in my inbox box not too long ago, notifying me of the project that was beginning. And then I was invited by Isla to the West Hazeldale meeting where a representative from the planning showed up and talked about this project. And so really what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over to Isla to kind of explain what's going on.
Well, the city of Vancouver, but their city limits butts right up to the border of West Hazeldale. So it was interesting to me, and I wanted to have them come out and tell us what, if anything, would impact not just my neighborhood, but Highway 99 too, because when they start messing around, then sometimes it gets crazy. However, this particular project looks to me, and I sat through the things she sent me, all sorts of material. I think it's going to be a lovely program. And one of the things that the city of Vancouver has kind of left like the redheaded stepchild is the upper end of Main Street. So now they are taking that on, and that will also include and connect up with C-Trans bus rapid transit, which, whether we need it or want it or not, is going to be running up Highway 99, probably built out and functional by 2027. But
it seemed to me kind of coincidental that the two planning processes would begin at the same time, improving the lower end and C-Tran running a vine up Highway 99. Now, I don't know where everybody stands on that, but I just wanted you to become aware that this process is going. It does not, it doesn't really in Northeast Hazeldale, but it's certainly something that's going to affect us if you go down towards that area. And so I wanted everybody to be aware of that it's going on, and this kind of, if you could scroll down a little bit more just to look at the timeframes that we're looking at.
They also, they've got a good little website. It's called Be Heard Vancouver. And that's just a nice thing to, maybe you can scroll up a little bit, Marilee, and show them that. There we go. So it's beheardvancouver.org/Upper Main. And if you have any questions about it, then that would be the place to look.
I believe that you can also make public comment at that site too.
Yeah,
is that
I
correct?
think you're right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
So.
Yes, and just a comment from us in the communications department. It's something that we've wanted to expand, but we don't have budget for. If you want to see something that is really cool, go ahead and use that QR code and go to that page, or type in the link and go to that page. And basically that Be Heard Vancouver has all of their projects, and just plunk around on there and see how easy it is to comment. You can even put pins on a map and show, if you want to comment on something, you can put a pin on a map and say, we need a stop sign here, or we want a speed bump here. And we would really like to have that program for county folks. And if you plunk around on there and you really like it, we'd love support being sent to our counselors.
Good point. Yeah. Good.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, the project timeline has, well, we're into outreach and engagement. They're looking at develop corridor designs and striping and planning of the corridor designs. Now, there's a lot more going into it than just what you see there on the pic. But any questions, comments, or concerns? Because that's really the end of of what I wanted to update everybody on. So if there's nothing else, as far as this goes, as far as the Vancouver Upper Main Street Safety and Mobility Project goes, we could end screen share and get to the end of our agenda. And I appreciate everybody putting up with my program tonight. I don't make as good a presenter as I do anything else, and so I appreciate the fact that Isla was here to bail me out. What I would like to do before we end the meeting, we've got 3 minutes left before 8 o'clock, and I don't want to keep Marilee any longer than we need, but what I want to do is get some feedback from the group on what kind of presentations you would like to see over the coming year. And just so that you understand, we generally take December off. January and February, we've designated as online only, but beginning in March, we'll probably start with our hybrid meetings again. And in March, we also, I have talked with Isla about having 3 or 4 combined meetings with Northeast Hazeldale and West Hazeldale. And I believe March, we've got one scheduled. Isla, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, we do. It's true.
And do we have the presenter already scheduled? Like we talked about Waste Connections?
That's what it is, isn't it, Marilee?
I haven't stated as that. I didn't know if I was contacting them. Normally, I don't contact the outside county ones. We can
But
talk.
that's who we
offline.
have. Yes.
We can follow up out on offline to
Okay.
finalize that.
So what I would like from the group tonight, if you have any particular interests in who you would like to see as presenters for 2024. Okay, Kevin has a question. So we're online. Can we watch? Okay, those tying in with growth management plan and other land use issues as topics. Okay.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's what I use, Kevin, to keep me awake at night.
Was that land use?
There's all sorts of stuff going on. It's just fun.
Any other suggestions as far as presenters? We will need for April and May and possibly June. July and August we take off, although Isla and I have talked about possibly coming up with some type of event that we can do in one of our parks, sponsored by both our neighborhood associations in July or August, or possibly even June,
Well,
depending on
we're
what the
going
weather
to,
looks like.
last year we did a popsicle in the park thing in Fazio Park, which worked really well. It's a big open park and it worked well. My people were happy with it. It's currently scheduled. So that's going forward. We can do more than one, or we can make that one just a little more special.
Yeah, we can talk about it offline and figure out what to do. But does anybody else have any other recommendations for presenters, or will you just be happy with what I come up with?
I'm kind of thinking going into spring, maybe a master gardener or someone that talks about growing vegetables, sustaining your own gardening and growing your own food, composting, things like that. Because that's when it's going to really get kicked off is April. And I'm just wondering if that would be something that would be interesting to everyone, how to do raised flower beds, how to compost, how to organically grow different things so that the bugs don't take over. And you can do that with marigolds, petunias, things like that, catnip. I don't know.
I think it's a good idea to do seasonally appropriate presenters. And I do have a friend that is in the Master Gardener program, so I can contact her. I'll see her at the end of the month, and we can talk about scheduling something along those lines.
That would be cool because I'm interested in composting. I've already done the raised flower beds, but even things like what grows best with others, because
Companion planting?
some vegetables you can't grow together, and others get really happy and excited. So
Yeah. And there's nothing more fun than watching vegetables get happy and excited. And
yes.
we can certainly look at that for spring and maybe into even into early summer. So
Yeah, and
anything
what
else?
attracts
Okay, Kevin,
birds?
how about lighting a bee pollen honey business? Highlighting
Mhm.
a bee pollen honey business. Okay.
Well, Pete Dubois does a whole series of composting and different kinds of composting. I did a lasagna composting class at Casey Center. There's a ton of that, Teresa. It just would be interesting. And that's kind of thing probably we should add Chad to the website, that kind of connection.
Okay.
Yeah,
Anything
any
else?
links that we can add to Facebook for sure, or include in the newsletter.
Yeah. Oh, great. Perfect.
Okay, hearing nothing else. I appreciate the fact that everybody took the time on Valentine's Day and Ash Wednesday to come and listen to me talk. It's not the easiest thing to do, I understand. But I appreciate it anyway. And or maybe a story about PK ants, the
And
canch.
Kevin. Yeah, gotten it. I'm right getting it.
Oh, pollinators. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Plants. Okay.
You got
Sorry,
that
I
now?
wasn't translating the very well.
That's all right. That's all right.
Anybody else? Okay, hearing none, I'm not going to keep you any later. So if there's a motion to adjourn.
Yep,
Anybody?
motion.
Okay. Okay, well, we'll take a second as
I can't second. I'm not part of your team.
I understand that. I was waiting for somebody else, but I'll just accept it. We have
I
a
second
motion.
it.
There we go. Okay, all in favor.
Yep, hi.
Thank you. We
Bye,
are
everyone.
adjourned, and I appreciate everybody showing up. Thank you for being here. Have a happy the rest of your Valentine's Day.
Take care.
Thank you.